Everyone, welcome back to another edition of Wrestling IQ 101. I'm Andrew, alongside Derek.
What's up, guys?
And today we have the Prince of Aesthetics, Damian Gibbs. How are you, man?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for having me. Very, very honored to be a guest on the show.
Awesome to hear that, man. So you want to give some people a little bit of a background about yourself?
Sure. All right. I'm the Prince of Aesthetics, Damian Gibbs. I also go known as the aesthetic male, the aesthetic alpha male of professional wrestling. I tell everyone that I'm handcrafted by the gods of Mount Olympus, that whole spiel. But I'm just a average New Jersey guy who loves wrestling, living the dream, trying to make this his 100% full-time thing and not have to do anything on the side. But just a guy who's chasing his dream. Simple as that.
Nice. When you got into wrestling, who trained you when you started wrestling?
I was trained under Pat Buck. I broke into wrestling in June of 2012. I had just gotten out of college not too much earlier than that. And it was just something I always wanted to do. I told myself I'm absolutely doing it. There's no way. I had gotten into my best shape I possibly could from years and years of lifting, telling myself once I'm out of school, that's what I'm doing. And yes, I took the first shot I got. I was originally wanting to move out to Lance Storm in Canada, but honestly, looking through everything, the expenses of moving there for 3 months and everything, the college loans that crippled me, I realized that at that point that was really just not going to happen. Getting a full-time job after school was pretty tricky, so it just getting delayed. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it now. And was looking for respectable schools. Pat's opened up just right then. I'd honestly never heard of him, but his reviews, were from current guys in WWE, so I figured, why not take a shot? So his school opened up, and I was there on the first day, and that's what brought me here today.
So when you talk about Pat Buck and taking a chance, what were you really hesitant about? Because he was a guy who made it to OVW and saw firsthand about how things are run up there.
Yeah, take a chance, meaning I read a lot of wrestling autobiographies. I'm not a huge reader, but I always was big fan of all the guys who made it big that you see on TV, and once they come out with an autobiography, so I like to read it. And the one consistent advice that's always across the board regarding where you get trained is trained by someone that you know who's been there. Like, don't just settle for any Joe Schmo training because those people are everywhere. So there was a bit of skepticism because I'm like, well, I haven't seen him on TV, but seeing the colleagues he was around was really what, boosted me into the direction of giving it a shot. So not so much as giving it a shot as literally blindly saying, well, I hope to God this is, it was more of a calculated risk. Like, he definitely worked in WWE's developmental. He worked alongside a lot of guys that I have seen on television, clearly has seen a lot of things. Just because he himself doesn't have the name value that someone on television doesn't mean that he hasn't seen his share, which he has. He's trained under a lot of good names. Dr. Tom was a big mentor for Rip Rogers. Rip Rogers is fantastic, brilliant mind. So he's definitely been exposed to his share of things and offers a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, you could definitely hear that from him from the conversations with the Ryback and his own personal podcast, the Pat Buck Show.
What ultimately made you want to become a wrestler?
It's really honestly been the only thing I've ever wanted to do with my life. And you and your kid growing up, people will be like, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a police officer, I want to be whatever, ABC. From as long as I can remember, the only thing my answer to that question ever was professional wrestler. I can remember being as young as 3, 4, really whenever my first memories were from watching wrestling. I watched my grandfather, really my whole house, my whole family watched in the house, but specifically he was the one that got me into it. And I just remember sitting there watching with him back when I was 3, 4, 5 years old. So it's always been there, and it's just always been what I wanted to do. It didn't really seem to be any bit of a plausible scenario until I got older. I was a very, very, very skinny kid growing up. So it was more like my family would humor it just so as not to crush my heart. Like, they would never tell me, oh, you can't do that just because, they didn't want to break me. But deep down, I know nobody thought that it was ever an actual possibility. And I think that's another reason they went with it. They probably knew I was crazy enough to go for it. They would have tried to shut it down. But because they figured, he's going to look in the mirror, see that, you know, he's a high school senior, 135 pounds. They'll get out of his head. But no, the bug never escaped. I went to college, graduated, and when I was at college, that really hit it hard and was dead set on doing it. I got out, and there was no talking me out of it. I don't think my family saw it coming. I think that they just always thought that it would just be the little childhood dream that he puts aside, but now that it never went away. That was dead set on doing it.
Who were like your influences growing up? Like who was, you know, just that one wrestler you saw and just was like that really made you want to do this?
The first wrestler ever was the 1-2-3 Kid. Back we'll show off when he was the 1-2-3 Kid. I think I can relate because being on the Land of the Giants in WWF at the time, he really was very, very, very tiny. He was always billed at 212, which to this date, I've noticed back in the day, all the skinniest guys were always billed at 212 pounds. So as a joke, I get billed at 213 and a half, just as like a little homage to that. But he was always the guy that he probably in real life was maybe 175, with guys that are all 225 and above. They're just monsters. So I could always relate to him being the skinny guy. But he was my first year wrestler that made me fall in love with it. But I don't know, I had a lot of favorites over the years. Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, Mick Foley, and all of his different gimmicks. I was a fan of all of them, and they all made me fall in love with it. So, but I guess the answer, the first guy that drew me in would be the 1-3 Kid.
So you have like these great vignettes on like YouTube with you and Beefcake Charlie, where like he's afraid to talk to you, you won't talk to him, and you're sending Jay in between, and there's other ones and stuff like that. Were those your concepts? Were those something that were presented to you?
That was 100% our doing. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I always felt like we really were just kind of floundering everywhere in the middle with no real path for us. Like when this was Pro Wrestling Syndicate at the time, I remember they had the television show, and they were always getting content and looking for people for promos. And I remember literally have to hound down talent and tell them like, wow, be here this day, we're filming a vignette or a promo. And then at that point, then the guys would give ideas and they would bounce back and forth and they would go do it. But nobody was ever going out and doing their own stuff. I went out and purchased my own camera, purchased my own green screen, went and did all these things. Every single promo we did was 100% our doing. Like we literally would come with a finished product, hand it to them, and then they'd be like, well, we need to for the shows. Here we go. So we put it on. So 100%, I don't care if it sounds selfish, but our group taking credit that we literally did everything when it comes to that. It had really not much direction. We tried to make the most of. We know that we're entertaining guys. We could put on a good show. So the best part is we are good friends in real life. It's just that much easier, especially when we included Mike Dell later on as the aesthetic males. We are all really good friends with each other, and pretty much any promo that we do is almost exactly how we are when we hang out anyway. So it just came really natural. It would be like, what's the stupid stuff we would do, and just kind of put it to paper. And I still have plenty of ideas that we haven't done that I want to at some point, including us riding J Enterprise as a mechanical bull. But maybe one day that video will come to light. That's been my baby for like 2 or 3 years. I'm waiting for it. But no, we always had a ball. We had tons of ideas, and we said, well, if they're not asking us to do anything, we will go out and be hard workers and do it ourselves and make it so good that it just can't be denied. And that's how a lot of it went.
Were you friends prior to this with Beefcake, or was that something that you guys were just thrown together? I mean, how did that tag team come about? Because you were going pretty hard by yourself with J Enterprise for a while.
Yeah, weird story. Actually, now that I think about it, the only person I knew in wrestling before getting into wrestling was Mike Dell, just because we were both active in the bodybuilding community, and we knew each other from that through just weird circumstance. Barely knew each other, but enough that I told him, hey, come train with me in wrestling, and we linked up that way. But outside of that, everyone I associate with in wrestling met after they got involved in wrestling. But Beefcake's one that I probably should have known earlier. I come from Scotts Plains, New Jersey, and he's from Westfield, New Jersey. Now, for those not familiar with New Jersey, these towns border each other, and we're bitter high school rivals. And Beefcake graduated high school 1 year after me, was also on the amateur wrestling team as I was. So we definitely faced each other many times, at least 3 years worth of high school. So I saw the guy in high school, but we were never wrestling. Throughout high school, I wrestled 119 up to 135. Beefcake was a 4-year heavyweight, so we definitely never ever had to wrestle each other. But teams head to head, 100%. But no, we never knew each other. Didn't meet until he joined the school that I was training at, and we met that way. But to answer your original question, J Enterprise was managing me. We had a nice little singles run, and it came time to get Beefcake on the shows. And it was just, I don't know, especially the type of character I had was needing some type of big, hired heavy, some guy to kind of do my dirty work. I was a big, big scaredy cat, big talker, not much action, so he would be kind of my Diesel to Shawn Michaels, if you will, something along those lines. So was put with us, and his character's gone through a whole bunch of evolution. At first, he was silent. He kind of even, at one point, one would think he was mentally handicapped with some of the promos, because Beefcake is probably, you got to have Beefcake on at some point, make him do impressions. He is the absolute best person I've ever seen with impressions. Can do anything, and his memory's outrageous. He remembers like cartoons from childhood, word by word, verbatim, like in a disgusting manner. He can probably recite every single Foghorn Leghorn rant from like the shows as a kid. So he used to be obsessed with one, which was with Muggsy and I can't remember the other guy, but the guy used to go, what do you want me to do, boss? So he used to cut every single one of our. And then the guy would always have like a cigarette in his mouth. He'd be like, "Go give it to him, Muggsy." So we would make Jay play that guy and Beef play the other one, and all of our promos were doing that. We were doing it just to make ourselves laugh more than anything. So one would think he was a little slow with the beginning of it, and then he kind of started getting a little more articulate, and then the full-on transformation into the Beefcake Charlie we know and love today. But he was put with us to be a little bit of a bruiser for me, and then eventually we initiated him into the underwear crew, and he became a plus-size underwear model to go with his normal-size underwear model counterpart.
That was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you, how did you come up with that idea to wear those tighty-whitey design trunks? And even more, how did you get Beefcake to agree with wearing those as well?
As for getting Beefcake to agree, I don't know. I'm a persuasive guy. No, I think Beefcake has a rare trait in wrestling. Most guys are very, very prideful and don't want to look like idiots and don't want to, they're very much they're obsessed with being the cool guy. That's nonsense. If we're going to go out and oil ourselves up and, 10,000 people watch us wrestle another dude, have fun. Make it, make an ass of yourself. Have fun. So Beefcake gets it. Beefcake has no problem, no ego, and he can do that. And he sees the humor in it. He's legitimately 315 pounds. A 315-pound man in his actual underwear, that's hysterical. So you can't make that stuff up. As for the actual gimmick where I came about with it, I don't know how many of your listeners will actually believe me, but I swear it's the truth. I actually thought that concept was 100% my own. I watched WWF my life, but I have a pretty bad memory, so I don't remember everything I ever saw. When I got the idea, I had just turned on a tag team partner, Dave Destruction. I was in Reality Check, and I was about to make a singles run, and I wanted to completely reinvent myself from how I appeared before. Before teaming with him, I was a heel with homage to Rick Rude. I had trunks that had myself printed on the front and the back. So I was kissing my bicep on my crotch, and I was doing a muscle pose on my butt. So I wanted to do something completely different, and I thought, what as a heel, what people would not like me as, what's really arrogant? I was I'm not the biggest guy, I'm in good shape, but I'm not humongous. I kind of have a body of an underwear model to an extent. So I was what if I actually wrestled in underwear? I was that's a lot of heat there. I mean, that's pretty douchey. This guy's in his tighty whities. So I decided to run with it there. And then, man, I went on the full blast. I got the white parasol. I'm like, what's impossible to like, no matter what? I was like, a guy with a freaking umbrella. I didn't even know it was called a parasol at the time. I looked into it. I was like, a guy with a white umbrella. That's just irritating. So I just tried to keep drawing up, like, what would really make me mad? What are all the traits that I just can't stand in a person? And then I just built it up, and we had difference of aesthetics. But then for those who are well equipped with their WWF knowledge, there was a performer in the late 90s who wrestled as Meat, Sean Stasiak, and he had underwear trunks, the same thing that said Meat on them. A very, very short-lived gimmick, and honestly, I didn't even remember it, but he was the actual originator, but unknown to myself. I do have a bad habit of that. I thought I invented my finishing move as well, and I was all excited. I went to training, and then Craven Varro, another wrestler at WrestlePro, mentions, you're talking about the Regal Plex there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, damn. I was like, oh, damn it. That was my favorite move in amateur wrestling. It's the cradle setup without the actual slam, but the same way to lock the guy up and pin him was my absolute favorite move in amateur wrestling. And I had forgotten, shit, that is Regal's finisher, but thought I invented that myself. So I got a bad habit of that.
Recently, we had on one of your other partners in the Alpha Males. We had Anthony Bowens on.
Okay.
And he told us a interesting story about how you got both of you guys into a music video.
Yes.
Yeah, can you kind of tell us about that and how was that experience?
Sure. All right. So I guess I'm just gonna run with that. Maybe my whole shtick as an underwear model is believable because on my Instagram, I feature myself as with a daily dose of aesthetics. Every single day, I put up a new photo, usually from my wrestling career, but not always. But something that's that I find worthwhile, either a good physique shot or a funny situation I found myself in wrestling. Anything that just gives my fans their daily dose. And I was contacted after someone saw this, asking if I would be interested, just fully assuming already that I was an underwear model, asking if I'd be interested in being in a music video. And I thought, okay, it's a pretty cool opportunity. Well, it's a Sunday afternoon, there's no shows local that day. I'm like, why not? I'm talking to them and feeling them out, and they say that they're looking for any others, if I have any other suggestions. So I was like, all right, guys with really good physiques. I was like, I mentioned Bowens, and for laugh, I actually mentioned the wrestler Falaba, just because I thought it'd be very funny. And they were all for it, but he actually was away in Texas that weekend wrestling for Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. But Anthony and myself, we did get cast for it, so we went over to it. It was filmed in building in, I believe, Patterson, New Jersey, and there we show up. We're probably, at that point, I don't believe he was signed to the modeling agency he is, but I believe we're probably the only two people that don't actually model full-time there. All the guys there had, significant resumes, made nothing, and here we are, we just were found out, wrestlers pretending to be underwear models here. But it was a great time. It was a rap music video, and it was called The Dealership, where they're two female rappers, and they bring women to their establishment to, instead of shopping for cars, they shop for men. So it's guys of all different, heights, builds, and sitting there in their underwear, and the girls come and purchase us. So we had a good time with that. I remember once that video launched, everybody lost it just for the ridiculousness of it. They requested that we, bring in our own underwear. Almost every single guy brought in boxer briefs. I guess that's the standard here for this. I didn't catch the memo. I brought in my actual wrestling trunks. So everybody has these dark black or blue boxer briefs. I'm in the smallest white tighty whities humanly possible, sporting a black eye that I got the week before from Zach Gallen in a match. And it's just ridiculousness. The song got so catchy, so I could listen to it all the time now from hearing it so much. And just a good time, a lot of fun. So check it out. The artists are Porsche and Mercedes. The song is The Dealership, and see if you can spot Anthony and myself. And speaking of Mr. Bowen, did he happen to mention his collegiate batting average to you guys?
No, he actually didn't.
No, he didn't.
Oh, okay. I wish you knew beforehand. Yeah, he played baseball in college for Seton Hall. And just like everyone to know that he batted 146, he was batted 167 in college. And that one hit he claims, he definitely has told me different stories. And once it was a double, another time it was a single. He can't get his story straight, so I'm convinced it was a typo. He actually struck out all 6 at bat. But yes, his entire college career, 6 at bats.
Now, doing the music video, do you think maybe acting would be in your future?
Oh, it's a natural transition for a wrestler being, an entertainer in front of the camera. And actually, something like that just came up today, and someone asked if I would do it. Now, while I love wrestling, I know I can't do it forever. That's, my body won't last. So would I ever make that jump? Absolutely. I mean, I do think I have a whole lot more to accomplish in wrestling than I do want to do, but it's definitely not off the table. So I absolutely would love to act and get into all that stuff. If I wasn't pursuing acting, pursuing wrestling, I would definitely be looking at avenues in acting, comedy, anything like that. I definitely enjoy entertaining and think I could, have a nice, fun career in that field. But at this point, the focus is definitely still wrestling and will be for the foreseeable future. But acting opportunities on the side, definitely not limiting myself.
I wanted to go back for a second here. And you said that you were friends with Mike Dell.
Yeah.
So after WrestlePro broke away from PWS, he was the lifeguard persona. Did that take convincing for you to say come over here, or is it just something that they just wanted to do, start something new with him?
So for as far as him teaming up with us?
Yeah, teaming up with you guys. Yeah.
The aesthetic males was almost a joke to an extent. A buddy of mine who's big time wrestling fan. He's not a wrestler or anything, not involved in it. But he's a big fan of wrestling. He's always texting me stupid stuff, just messing around. But one day he texts me, and he'll give these ridiculous scenarios, and I'm just they're more to make me laugh. I think he's kind of just almost trying to test a reaction, see if I give him one. But one, he's this is when I was doing the Aesthetic Enterprise. I was in my underwear. He goes, it'd be really cool if you guys, you just did the American Males 2.0. You come out with the clap and everything. And, I shrugged it off and everything. Again, I think he's just being stupid. Because most his gimmick ideas were just bites off of original gimmicks. So I'd be like, this is stupid. You told me I should be Kid Love one day. And this is Dude Love's illegitimate child. So you'd be you'd be the illegitimate child of an illegitimate child. I'm like, all right, this is ridiculous. Stop. So I've learned to kind of tune out his suggestions, but I kept that one in my back pocket, and I actually mentioned it to Pat right after, when he made the announcement that he was parting with Eric Tappow from Pro Wrestling Syndicate and doing his own thing. And I know he wanted to shake up a lot of the gimmicks just so that there was an actual differentiation between the two. So I mentioned it to him, and just an idea just to see if and his eyes lit up. I don't think his eyes ever got so big. Yeah, the clap and everything. Definitely run with that. So what started as a joke idea actually became, somewhat of an idea. And, his idea was to, he was pretty open with things. He's like, yeah, that's something he's like, I'm going to need something for Dell because he's not going to do the lifeguard anymore. So it could be maybe you, Dell, and Beefcake, or Bowens, you, and Beefcake, something like that. He threw a lot of things at the wall. I know Bowens wanted to focus on singles at the time. Dell was like, yeah, that should be fun. He understood that me, Beef, and him were all really good buddies, so it would be very, very organic. I learned that early in my career when Dell was, he was doing his own thing. I don't even think he was the lifeguard yet. Or actually, no, this is when he first became the lifeguard back in 2013, and I was the Prince. No Beef at this point. It was leading up to Jay's debut. We filmed a few vignettes to hype up Jay's, and we did 4-part series. And me and Dell were just bouncing back back and forth on camera, just having fun with it. And everybody thought it was, really good, really organic. It didn't seem forced just because we were actual friends. So he remembered back to that. I think those videos are on his YouTube somewhere, Television 1. I don't know. I haven't seen them in years. But we just always had a cool chemistry, so he was really excited to come on board and do it. And he's always been big in the same bodybuilding.com stuff as me, and that's where a lot of the aesthetics really originated. All the stuff that I speak of is very, very big in the lifting community. And so whenever we have, outside people that come that know about working out and things, they immediately are drawn to what we do because they're like, oh, I get this. This is the stuff I focus on. So we had that connection, and yeah, he wanted to be a part of it. But the main moral of it is that we were just buddies outside of the ring. So it's easier. It's really not acting at that point. It's just hanging out with your buddies and being real.
You also wrestled for the Sanctuary.
That's correct, yes.
And so we had Mike Orlando from the Sanctuary a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling us that thanks to the Sanctuary, he could learn how to wrestle for the camera. Do you feel like the same way? Do you feel like you're getting a different experience wrestling for the Sanctuary than any other company?
Yeah, the Sanctuary, hands down, is the most underrated place simply for... There's so many things that I guess people don't understand about it and what it's offering. The owner, John Trosky, is a great guy. He really does look out for everybody. He's pretty much offering a playground to wrestlers to fine-tune and to just have creative control. Like, no other place am I pretty much told, hey, if you want to go cut a promo, keep it under 2 minutes, talk about what you want, and go, let me, decide what I want to do in the matches. Just, gives a real creative outlet. And just aside from that, though, like him wanting to see a third, the setup he has is just unreal. Now, WrestlePro is always great because huge crowds, and you got to learn to work to listen to them and work off of that. And while they do have a hard camera and everything, it's not the same as Sanctuary, mainly because of their setup. Like, yes, you can learn working the hard camera at WrestlePro and other places like that where they have a hard camera setup. But at Sanctuary, it's an arena. It really is. It's a former church that he converted, a very, very small one, but the setup is absolutely sick. There's equal chairs all sides of the ring, except there's an entrance leading into the main. But it's right in the center of the building. There's actually a big screen, as if like you were wrestling in a huge arena or stadium. Big screen above the entranceway. So while you're wrestling, you probably shouldn't take your head off your opponent, but you can glance up and see where everything is, and the hard camera is opposite the entranceway. So when you're in a hold, you're looking up at the camera, it's up on the big screen behind you. It's a whole nother art, and except for the time that I wrestled a tryout match for WWE with Bowens, never had a chance with that big screen. So very, very, very cool experience there, and everything is just top notch. The softest ring I've ever been in. Trotsky's a legitimate Hollywood stuntman. He's been in a lot of movies like Wolf of Wall Street, The Wrestler, just done a lot of stuff. So he knows the value of protecting his guys. His ring is the softest I've ever been in. It's great. I mean, all rings obviously still hurt. That's not a fun experience. But if you're going to do it, you want to make it obviously as soft as possible. So really, really takes care of everybody, and a good little setup there. But can't say enough good things. It's a smaller promotion because it's all the way out in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. So the New York, New Jersey market doesn't know as much about it. But always been good. And the next time I'll be there is Friday, February 3rd. They're having their annual Rumble there. So looking forward to that. And Mike Orlando is still the champ. Look forward to taking that off of him because I'm the longest reigning bad guy there. I think I'm the only guy who has not made any type of turn, staying the bad route for the foreseeable future.
It's a tough one to call. You or Mike Orlando.
Do a little trash talking, yep.
Now, do you think doing things like, the music video, doing things like wrestling for PWS on TV and, wrestling at the Sanctuary, do you think things like that prepare you for, the bigger stages of possibly one day wrestling for maybe TNA or even WWE, NXT, anything like that?
Oh, 100%. Well, I can't say for certain that it will help. It should, by using any type of logic. All this stuff should help, but I can 100% say it won't hurt. So I always try to do everything I can, just because I know it's I got nothing to lose. Absolutely. None of this will hurt me, but it can only make me better. The Sanctuary, that arena type feel, it only can prepare you, having that screen. Because, a big thing that a lot of guys in that environment the first time they do is as soon as they get a hold or something, they're staring at themselves up there. And, that's obviously a big mistake. You don't look like you're competing any longer. You look like you're admiring yourself. Unless that's your actual gimmick and you really are conveying that, it's not going to work. So it definitely is almost like a dry run for a bigger scale. And it's just a good way to shake any cobwebs out. And music video, all exposure is good exposure. I mean, any chance someone gets to see your name, it only can help. So you definitely want to, exhaust all resources, go all outlets, get your name out. Cross promotion's huge. I mean, I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they try to cater to only wrestling people. Having appeal outside of wrestling people is huge. Look at, the biggest draw, I don't know necessarily in history, but actually, the way I was going, I can actually bring up another better example. The biggest draw in wrestling history, and not named Hulk Hogan, was probably Andre, and mainly because of his mainstream appeal. Movies, like he's a star. I think probably was a bigger draw than Hulk, in all honesty, those two. And current day, the biggest appeal, definitely not in most people's top 5 for wrestling list, it would be Brock Lesnar, because he has that mainstream appeal. You know, he's known in the UFC world, he's known in Hollywood, like, he is a superstar name. So any chance you get to get out of wrestling and draw more people in outside, get more people to care, is a good thing. I think a lot of times people in wrestling live in a delusional bubble and feel like, wrestling is the biggest thing in the world. At the end of the day, I mean, to us wrestling fans, it is, and, I'll argue with anyone that wrestling is the best thing ever, but I'm not delusional. I know that in the world of entertainment, wrestling is such a small portion. There's for every one person that loves wrestling, there's a good 25 to 50 that either don't care for it or don't follow it. So if you can draw those people in, that's where you bring the money in into wrestling. So you want to try to have that appeal to everyone, and being in things outside of wrestling really helps that. So I'm all for trying to explore all avenues and doing everything I possibly can to get ready for one day being on television and having a good run.
I want to talk about some of the legends you've been in the ring with. You teamed up with the Blue Meanie and Honky Tonk Man. You've faced Gangrel. With those guys, with those years of knowledge, does that help you also? Like, do they give you advice, or was this just something that they were just there just to be there?
I love those experiences. I know a lot of guys that would rather wrestle just like another indie guy as opposed to wrestle a name like that. I would argue I like those experiences much more, simply because end of the day, it is a great chance to learn. They have accomplished things that people that haven't been in their spot have not, period. So they have seen things that you can't. I understand that the business is changing, so some of the things aren't 100% relevant anymore, but really just, like anything else in life, it's the same as Dr. Tom analogy. It's like flavors of ice cream. Some people like strawberry, some people like chocolate. It doesn't mean that any of them are bad. It's all preference. So what they're going to be able to teach you is about a certain preference in type of wrestling, whereas a big guy who's a big name on the indies right now but hasn't made television, he is catering to a different type of preference in wrestling. But I like wrestling with them because usually the style that they go for is more allowing of longevity. Those are the guys that wrestled every single day for weeks on end. Just the style that those older guys used to work was safer on their body. Not so much safer, but was able to be done night in, night out. It was more like a slower pace, more based on crowd feeling. And, these guys would go and tour. They'd be on the road all 7 days for like 6 weeks at a time. So they'd have 42 matches in 42 days. I feel like a lot of the style today is definitely not like allowing of that and forgiving on the body, that to have some of these matches that you're seeing, these crazy, they're incredibly exciting, but the idea of doing that, 4, 5, 6 times a week for weeks on end, I just don't see that happen. I feel like shorter careers and more time off is going to be needed. So rather learn and really, become an expert at that, where I can take care of my body. And ultimately, that's the name of the game. We're not actually really killing each other. We just want people to think that. So got to definitely protect your body and be able to go forward like that, as well as the stuff that they were all experts in was crowd reaction and psychology and understanding of what the people wanted and what they were asking for and giving it to them. And that's why a lot of those matches be on the fly. They'd go out with nothing prepared, and they were just so darn good at understanding what they were like that night and what they wanted. And studying people is really ultimately the main thing with Hollywood. When you understand what people want and can give and please the most amount of masses at once, you're going to be successful and have a following. So with our whole discussion before about other avenues in Hollywood, I feel like those older guys, those quote-unquote names, have a lot to offer in terms of teaching tools that are going to be very, very helpful for branching out into things like acting, comedy, any other aspect of people, Hollywood. So I'll never turn down any opportunity to wrestle a name. I always have learned great things from them. Larry Zbyszko, Gangrel, Blue Meanie, Honky Tonk Man, there's Tony Ellis, there's been a bunch. I've learned something from every single one. They've all been great experience. and number one on my list would be Jerry Lawler. So any promoters listening, please book me versus Jerry Lawler. Would love to pick his brain and learn from him. He was one of the best and has so much to offer. So I would love a chance while he's still going to get in there with him.
That kind of leads into my next question. I was wondering who would be your dream opponent that you would like to face?
I actually just got asked this yesterday by a promoter looking to book matches for the upcoming year. And the dream match, even though it's no longer possible, it would be my favorite wrestler. That's Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect.
Yes, okay.
If he was still here, he would be the number one. But of guys that are still going, I think in my list I had Dolph Ziggler at number one. And now usually I wouldn't put guys that are currently on television just because obviously they cannot do that given their situation. But I know he's been there for a while, and I guess at this point it wouldn't surprise me if he was considering leaving. So if I found that he was out of WWE within the next year, it wouldn't surprise me. So maybe he'll make an independent run. I personally don't think he will. I think he'll probably just move into comedy and be done with it. But if he did have a chance to get on the indies, I would love to have a chance to wrestle him. He's, I think, one of the most talented guys in the business today, and a chance to learn from him, being that we have, similar looks, similar bodies, a lot of things very, very similar. Would love to learn any tips I could. I think he's the best seller there, so would love a chance to wrestle him. John Morrison, be a great match. Jerry Lawler, as I said. Bob Holly. Love to get in the ring with Bob Holly.
I really wanted to see you and Tyler Breeze.
Tyler Breeze. There's a fan popular in the New York and New Jersey market. He goes to all the shows every single time. Without fail, I come out, and he's always calling me Tyler Breeze. And I'm like, come on, man. Steve Scott has a cell phone. Might as well call him Tyler Breeze. Might at least have a parasol.
The last show I went to, it was the last WrestlePro show I saw you at was the one with the Hardys. I feel like, I don't think I'm mistaken, but I feel like I didn't see you with the umbrella, and I was very upset that you didn't have the umbrella with you. You came out with Beefcake, and I love when you come out with the umbrella. I love you as a heel. When do you think you would possibly be going back to a heel, or is that something you kind of do like all the time?
This past, I don't know, maybe 6 months, I've really focused on trying to cement my brand. And unfortunately, I feel like a true heel cannot really be a babyface. We're talking a pure heel, like kind of like a Rick Rude, and almost the same way that a pure babyface, like a Ricky Steamboat, really can't be a heel. He's just a face. So I feel like the more pure you get to one way, there's no crossover. And I feel like my vision for the Prince of Aesthetics is just about as pure heel as it gets. Pretty close. I mean, towards the end of our run as the Aesthetic Enterprise, we were getting cheered. I think that has to deal with more of us being in a Smart Mark crowd, so they understood the things we were doing in terms from a working perspective, so they appreciated that. But by all accounts, the fact that we were messing with people that were disabled, I mean, Zach Allen has one leg and Gregory Iron has one arm, and that we get cheered after beating them up and making fun of their injuries, kind of messed up in the grand scheme of things. So I'll write that off, us getting cheered, simply because of the environment that we're in. But you put us down south with a more of a pure wrestling crowd, we absolutely get you booed. So where I'm going with this is the Prince of Aesthetic is as heel as it gets, cannot really be a face. So that's where I came up with the aesthetic male, Damian Gibbs, and it's another branch of it. This is pretty pure face here, all happy-go-lucky, the clap. So very, very different ends of the spectrum. Ultimately, obviously, the same guy here, still built around aesthetics, but they're very, very different. And want to try to keep crafting that out and putting that out there. So once that change was made, PWS WrestlePro, the transition was made. The Prince of Aesthetics was gone. In came the aesthetic male, as pure face as it gets now. But in other companies I wrestle, whenever I am booked as a heel, that's where the Prince of Aesthetics come out. So you can still see the parasol out at other shows. This weekend I will be at Old Time Wrestling on Saturday afternoon. That's the 14th. I'll be wrestling Dave Davis, but I will be the aesthetic male face, as well as that evening, Red Coast Pro in Newark, Delaware. I'll be wrestling Harry Baldwin. So that's Saturday night, the 14th. I'll be face both those nights, but the following week, I believe it's in Jackson, New Jersey, January 21st, I'll be making my return to Superstars of Wrestling Federation. It's been a little bit since I've been there, and I'll be wrestling Steve Scott as the Prince of Aesthetics. So if you need to get your parasol fixed, that will be on the 21st, the Saturday the 21st in Jackson, New Jersey. I'll be there with the parasol, hopefully breaking it over Steve Scott's head.
Nice. Yeah, when you came out, I'm like, who is this man? What have they done to Damian Gibbs? This is not Damian Gibbs.
There were a few people that were disappointed in mad the first time they saw it. Like, oh, we love the underwear and you guys being big douches. But I will say, as the aesthetic males, so many kids got involved and built definitely a new big fan base. So it was definitely a great experience to have fans of the Prince as well as now fans of the aesthetic male. So now the goal is to just build up both. But ultimately, two very, very different ends of the spectrum. And enjoy playing both. Aesthetics complete with parasol, and as a face, the aesthetic male bringing his clap. That's right, let me spread my clap at your show.
So besides working with the legends, you've got to work with so many of WrestlePro's brightest stars like Nikos Ricos, Team España. You got to even wrestle with Monsters Island, who beat you up for attacking the handicap heroes. Mm-hmm. Have there been a pinpoint moment where you've had like a favorite match with some of these guys on the indie scene?
Favorite match? It's funny. This is a question I feel like I should have been prepared for, because that's pretty a normal one, but I actually haven't been asked that in a while. I got asked that all the time early in my career, but it's been a while now. At the time, the favorite match had always been my tryout match with Anthony Bowen, simply because of the magnitude of what it was, as well as I wish I could see footage of it, because we left that match saying that was the best match we ever had. It was fantastic. Most fun I've ever had. I've had a ball. Every time I go out there with Beefcake, we always are cracking each other up, and we have some fun. There was one match in Team of the matches of the guys you mentioned. Most fun with Team España was definitely a show in Union where we wrestled, and I remember there was one spot where I got hung up in a tree of woe. Beefcake came to save me and charged in. They sideswiped him. He bounced into me, fell on his back. I fell out on top of him into a 69 position, and J Enterprise came to make the save, and they drop toe hold him into my ass. So it was a pretty gross looking visual, but that match was a lot of fun. I always had a good time wrestling with España. Monsters Island was never fun because I always got my ass handed to me. Yeah, right. But no, probably the most fun was Monsters Island. We did a two-war, like a war games type thing. There was two matches, two rings. I'm all over the place. Two different rings, and it was a 5-on-5 war. It was Bonesaw, Buster Jackson, who at the time, Simon something, I can't even remember what his name was. Right? Simon. He was Simon something the third, and would grab his crotch. And then Chris Avery Kuling was the Scranton Strangler at the time. So it was the five of us, and it was against the Monsters and Balls Mahoney. And I remember they're busting out weapons, and like we were in the back. I'm like, wait a minute. We're in a weapons match. Who said this? What's going on? So I remember we were like a little like, this is going to be something. So as soon as the match starts, me and J Enterprise, we take cover. We run into the crowd, and we're sitting there stealing people's popcorn, watching as Beefcake is getting beaten up mercilessly with a shovel by Arkham and getting strangled by Leather. And these guys are all just beating them down. And me and Jay are like, you got it, buddy, you got it. So we were able to avoid the carnage that happened in the ring and got our popcorn fix. And then we made it over for the finish. But Beefcake, I don't think he ever forgave us for that one.
So you've been working with Beefcake for a while now. Do you prefer doing singles or do you prefer doing tag team?
Honestly, I'm the type of guy that I think will get bored easily. Like, I was heel for so long. Most people, the normal progression of a wrestler is you come in and you're a babyface because you don't know any better. The heel leads, so you learn by being a face and listening to your veteran. When I came in, I was in a class of 12 guys, and we pretty much, not that we worked exclusively, but we had a rumble together. We had a bunch of our first matches together, and I was the heel of the bunch. So I had a lot of matches with Dave Destruction and company. So I was a heel from the get-go. And as a result, I told you I crafted a character that was just like pure heel. It was very much, there was no middle ground. So almost all of my matches for the first, probably 2 years of my career were heel. And I got to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm going to need to learn how to wrestle face for sure. That's definitely something. I mean, training is only so much. You got to learn how to do in front of a live crowd. So ultimately started, and that's when I wanted to do pretty much just face. I just wanted to get better at that. So I go in waves. After doing singles for a while, I'm like, all right, yeah, let me do some tag. Then now I'm at the point where I've done tag for a while, so I'm very excited to start, doing singles everywhere I can, as much as I can. But I know in like probably 6 months' time, I'll be like, okay, let's call up beef and do some tags in some places. And it's all about just switching it up, keeping it interesting. And things get stale easily. People don't want to see the same thing on repeat. So same way, I'm the same way. Tag this weekend, singles next time. Just switch it up every now and then.
You still keep up with like WWE and you watch like TNA or something like that?
Honestly, not like before I was in the actual business and was just a fan. I do think that it's irresponsible to not know at all what's going on, because ultimately, if any independent wrestler tells you that Vince McMahon called them on the phone right now and they would turn down his offer, and when I say independent wrestler, I don't mean Kenny Omega in New Japan, but an actual independent wrestler doing smaller shows like I am, if they said that they wouldn't go to WWE on the spot, they're lying. And I feel like if you showed up and you didn't know who the roster was, what was going on, you're going to find yourself in trouble pretty bad. So I try to stay up on it as much as I can. Usually a lot of times it's simply by scrolling into Facebook, and I don't know, most of my friends on Facebook are fans that are friends of me over the years, so they're always posting things. So I can, make pretty good rational assumptions about a lot of the things that are going on, but I can't tell you the last time that I actually sat down on a Raw or SmackDown when it was happening live and seen it. Every now and then, I make sure to catch the pay-per-views. I do like to do that when I can. But I definitely don't watch the programming as it's happening live usually.
What do you see as your ultimate goal with wrestling?
I want to, the simplest terms, I think everybody wants to be, 18-time world champ, Hall of Fame, all that great stuff. But to really define it, my actual set goal is to make a living off it, to make it so that I don't have to work another job, another day in my life. That wrestling, to me, that is being a success in the wrestling business. Wrestling has now been your life, and you're good from it. You absolutely have lived off of it, and that's all you had to worry about. That was your stress. Like, your day consisted of making sure you're eating right, staying in the best shape, studying to try to be the best wrestler you can, and using those tools to live your life happily as a wrestler. So when I can say that that's all I have to do to pay all my bills and I'm set for life from it, then I feel like I've been a success in wrestling. That's what I'm aiming for here. Any titles that come along the way, that's great. At the end of the day, they're just props and everything. So, but anything that comes, awesome. But I want to have a career that has funded my life. That's my absolute goal in wrestling. Under that, there's tons of minor accomplishments. I always want to wrestle in as many countries as I can. I've been fortunate enough to wrestle in 4 already: Mexico, Canada, England, and obviously the U.S. And you want to wrestle for as many companies as you can. There's like always cool things like that, but the ultimate goal is to make a living.
Now, can you tell us about any future shows?
Friday, I'll be at Sanctuary for their annual Rumble, where I'll be trying to take the Sanctuary title from Mike Orlando. And then the following week, hasn't been confirmed yet, but I believe it should be a good go, is BBWF. That's another Friday show on February 10th in, I think it's in North Plainfield, but I'm not sure. North Plainfield, New Jersey. I'm sure that if you follow them on Instagram, Twitter at BBWF Primetime, they will be advertising as more details come out. But Sanctuary on the 3rd and BBWF on the 10th for the immediate foreseeable future.
And where can people find you?
All right, so you can find me at a show near you, but no, online you can find me at, I have a website, DamianGibbs.com, DamianGibbs, that needs to be updated. So if you like more current stuff, I suggest you go to my Facebook fan page, which is Facebook.com/The Prince of Aesthetics, Damian Gibbs, or simply use the search button and put in Damian Gibbs, Prince of Aesthetics. Any combination like that should take you there. If you do not know how to spell aesthetics, it is AESTHETICS. On Instagram, you can find me at Damian Gibbs Aesthetics. Twitter is Real Aesthetics. and YouTube, Damian Gibbs Entertainment. I have a few matches and promos up there. Every now and then I like to put some fun stuff, so you can find a whole bunch of different variety. So go take a look, find me online, and share some love.
Get some Scooby snacks.
Yes, Scooby snack. Love Scooby. That is a real life love. If you only saw my closet, all my friends know I have a legitimate candy addiction. I have the worst sweet tooth you will ever see. I probably, not kidding, at this point in my house have about 100 pounds of candy. That's not even like an exaggeration. 100 is definitely what it clears. It could be significantly higher. So I have bulk Scooby snacks. I always have to have something on hand, but just pounds and pounds and pounds of candy. And
at that note, we are Wrestling IQ 101. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Hit the subscribe button right now if you didn't by now, and we'll see you on the next episode.